Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our very first mini virtual tech job fair this morning. And we apologize for the slight confusion earlier, but I see that a lot of you have found your way to the correct room. Thank you for joining us. So our first mini virtual tech job fair is brought to you by the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, the Entrepreneurs Sandbox, and the True Initiative. My name is Alan Ng, and I'm the Economic Development Specialist here at HTDC. So HTDC is a state agency attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Our mandate is to grow the tech economy and workforce here in Hawaii, which is the reason why we're bringing you today's event. I would also like to do a shout out for the True Initiative, a joint collaboration among the private and public sectors to encourage knowledge sharing and adoption of technology and best practices to create a resilient and thriving Hawaii. The True Initiative is an extension of the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. If you are interested to learn how you or your organization can be part of the True Initiative, please visit hec.org/true. Michelle, the director of the True Initiative, will be helping us with the breakout sessions. And I believe some of you actually went to her room earlier. So, once you go back there, you'll be able to meet her and ask her more questions about the True Initiative if you're interested. Lastly, before we kick off, I would like to welcome Sarah Nanbu, the General Manager of the Entrepreneurs Sandbox, to share a little about our co-working facility here in Kaka'ako.
Thank you, Ellen, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. As Ellen mentioned, the Entrepreneurs Sandbox is a co-working facility in Kaka'ako, owned by HTDC and managed by Box Jelly, a local co-working company. As we all know, remote working is the norm. Many of the opportunities we'll be learning about today are remote. So I encourage all of you to check out our co-working options, whether you're looking for a place to help you in your job search, or you're looking for a home base for your new remote role. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. So before we kick off the session, I would like to explain how the job fair works, only because this is the first time we're doing it and it may be a little bit confusing. So we have 3 companies here joining us today. The first company that will be presenting would be Booz Allen. And after each presentation from the companies, there will be a breakout session where you'll be able to ask the representatives more questions. The link to the breakout session will be shared in the chat, so make sure you look out for it. If you do leave the breakout, if you do leave our main session to join the breakout session, remember that you can always rejoin this main session at any time. After the first 20 minutes of each presentation in this room, remember that you can, there will be 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. So, you can also send in your questions throughout the session through the chat function as well. The webinar will be recorded and will be sent to all who registered. Lastly, one reminder, please keep your video and microphone disabled throughout the session so that we keep interruptions to the minimum. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Edward Barnabas, Principal and Director at Booz Allen, who have taken the time to join us today. Let me just stop my screen share. Let's see. Hi, Ed.
Hey, how are you? Can you guys hear me?
Yes. So let me, just kind of read out your accolades a little bit and introduce you to the audience, and then we will let you take over with the presentation for today. So Ed is part of Booz Allen's Pac Rim business that has its regional headquarters right here in Honolulu, Hawaii. Ed joined Booz Allen to help deliver complex IT solutions for the government and has helped win and lead multiple programs for the company. The portfolio he manages spans various capabilities ranging from data science and analytics, AI, machine learning, immersive AR, VR, and cyber, as well as digital modernization, enterprise architecture to agile systems delivery and integration. So there's a lot of projects that you cover. So a fun fact about Ed, he's also a drummer, and much being like a musician in a great band, he is fortunate to be surrounded by the best and brightest at work. His role is to bring strategists, developers, and architects together, provide whatever they need to be successful, and and complete projects. Outside of work, Ed loves spending time with his amazing wife, Lani, and two equally amazing daughters, Maya and Naomi, and of course, playing his drums. He has an MBA in Information Systems and Business Analytics from the University of Maryland, Smith School of Business, and a BA in Political Science from the University of Maryland. So again, thank you, Ed, for joining us today. I believe you have a couple of slides that you would like to share as you talk through and share more about what Booz Allen is.
I do. Let me go ahead and bring that up.
Sure.
Okay, are you able to see that?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. I also have one of my colleagues with me, Cheryl Cross, who's our senior recruiter here for the region, and I'll let her introduce herself. Cheryl, do you want to go ahead and quickly introduce yourself, and then I can give my introduction and go into the material?
I certainly will, and I'll add some video to make it spicy. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a wonderful way to start a day after Indigenous Peoples Day, a mental health day for Booz Allen. We're so excited to not only add to the workforce development of Hawaii, but to bring really challenging and incredibly important jobs to Hawaii and the Department of Defense. Ed will certainly go on to tell you more about our clients, our company, and we're really honored to have you here today. As a recruiter, if you have any questions, you can add them in the sidebar. I'll also add you my email address so you can contact me, and we look forward to speaking to you in the breakout room. Thank you, Ellen, for hosting us. Thank you, True, HTDC, and the DOJ for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, well, thank you. I'll give you a very brief introduction. Ellen definitely gave me a great intro there, and all the vast capabilities that that I've been able to be lucky to deliver for our clients and within the firm. But for me, I've been with Booz Allen for about 7 years. I've been in the IT consulting contracting industry for over 20 years now, predominantly within very all the areas that Ellen mentioned. I've been here in Hawaii for the past year, a little over a year. I was based in the DC area and was had a great opportunity to come out here for me and my family. And for the company, it was really asked to diversify our portfolio of work with a very heavy lean towards technology solutions. And we'll talk about what some of those technology solutions are. So my role here is our innovation and technology lead. And we work primarily within Department of Defense or a lot of DoD. We do have some pockets of work within commercial and civil, but our primary focus is within DoD. And a lot of the technology that's being driven in the government is originating out of the DoD space. And so there's a lot of opportunity there, especially from a career perspective, and an opportunity to work with a lot of cutting edge technology solutions and tools, software, hardware, infrastructure. And so it's just very exciting for me to be here and to be able to offer different services or differentiated services to our clients. How I met, a little bit about how I met Ellen and Sarah is an interesting story. Is when I came out to Hawaii, I had a really great base of technologists, and I wanted to bring in the culture of what's called culture of innovation. And that's a lot of failing fast, exploratory, show and tell type of technology solutions that really are about the product and about results as opposed to maybe decks, which I'm going to go through today. But and a way for us to spur that innovation was to get our technologists out of the day-to-day. And so we were looking for a space for them to work out of. And so we came up with what we called Innovation Fridays and worked out of the sandbox every Friday to get their headspace in a different place for them to think a little bit differently and to collaborate. And so in that effort, working out of the sandbox every Friday, we're able to meet wonderful people like Sarah and Alan and Richard and the sandbox and HTDC. And that's how this partnership began to bloom. So I thought that was a really cool story and really true to what the sandbox's mission is. It really did spur that innovation that we're looking for and really type of different idea. So thought I would share that. Okay, I have a few slides here. I'm going to try and go through them in a way that to show the content, but not to dwell on too many of the words here, because I would like to get to the Q&A. But at the highest level, who is Booz Allen? Booz Allen is a consulting firm over 100 years, where we really are a service provider for our clients, and our greatest asset is our people. So unlike some other competitors in our space, we are not typically a product company. We are a services company. And what that means is we bring our people to the problem. We are largely, in terms of technology, agnostic of tool, agnostic of technologies. And where our sweet spot is to be an integrator. And so what that means is we need to bring the best people to the problem. And so Booz Allen historically was founded as a management consulting firm, but I think in the last 20 years, we've really done a hard pivot towards being an IT consulting firm. And we'll get to what some of those capabilities are in a couple other slides. But what we do is we bring our strategists, IT consultants, as Ellen mentioned earlier, to the table, which is our biggest differentiation. And we find that within our space, clients do come to us with their hardest challenges, their toughest problems, and that our greatest asset is our people. And so that's what we've largely done. There's 4 words there on the bottom that resonate with me when I think of Booz Allen, or when people like in arenas like this, or when people have one-on-one conversations. I like to think that first and foremost, we're innovators. We're constantly thinking of different ways to tackle a problem. 2 is segues, we are problem solvers. A lot of the times our clients come to us with problems that they cannot even define themselves. And so an area that if you think you can excel within the company, one thing I like to say is that, are you comfortable being uncomfortable? And that means going into a tough space where the client's not really sure what they want, but you're able to define that for them. A third part of the equation is trusted partners. You cannot really partner and collaborate with a client unless you have a relationship. And because our people are our best commodity, they only are able to enable solutions and enable the right way in which to tackle something by having that trust with the partner. And so that's, I would say, over half of it is building that trust. And a lot of it, and the last one is change agents. More than just being innovative and solving problems, sometimes you have to have difficult conversations, and sometimes you have to push the boundaries, and sometimes you have to be disruptors. And I think what I love about being in Booz Allen is that that is encouraged. Is that how do we really look at this from different lenses, a problem that is, and how do we attack it in multiple ways, and how can we really push the client to have tough conversations and maybe take them to an area that they didn't think that they could go to. The next slide here is just some stats on the company. Again, we're over a 100-year-old company. We were founded in 1914. Our headquarters is in McLean, Virginia, which is right outside Washington, DC, in the metropolitan area. We have 104 locations in 7 countries. We've just crossed over 27,000 employees, I think, in the last fiscal year, and we're inching closer into being a $7 billion company in revenue. We're a Fortune 500 company and listed on the New York Stock Exchange. What we do we have a slide. I have a slide later dedicated to what these capability areas mean in terms of consulting, analytics, digital solutions, engineering and science, and cyber. And so I'll save a little bit of that towards the end. And our clients are primarily within the government space. Over 90% of our portfolio is in support of the federal sector and the government, with the remaining being in commercial. And so we span literally all facets of the government, from civil to defense to financial services, health, homeland security, transportation. But because that is our core offering and where we offer our services, we pretty much where you can think wherever the government is, we would have most likely a Booz Allen presence there. Our locations, as you can see, we're very well spread out. The largest being in Virginia because our headquarters is there. Washington, DC, because since we are largely government provider, that's where the capital is the country, and that's where the primary distribution is. But you can see that we have a lot of distribution around the mainland. But we do have, what Cheryl said, is that we have a large presence here, and people sometimes are surprised at the presence we have within what we call our PAC rent business. So we have an office here in Honolulu. And that serves as the hub for PackRib, which includes work that we have in Japan, Korea, Guam, Alaska, Indonesia, and Singapore. And that staff is now at 475, and we're looking to grow. We have a very positive multi-year growth plan for the next 3 years. Hopefully going up to 600, maybe even going up to 800 staff members within the region. And I think a big enabler of that will be the speed at which the government adopts technology, and then having trusted partners with them in order to enable that. And I think technology is what allows scale, it's what allows growth. I think, you know, in conversations with True and the Sandbox, is that it's not just from me talking from a perspective of Booz Allen, but it's also locally from a Hawaii job market perspective too, is that how can we bring careers and jobs that have a chance for people to be on island, to work on cutting edge tech, to get higher salaries, and to be able to stay on island. And I think us operating in the federal space, sometimes that doesn't get as much press or notoriety as what technology is doing in the commercial sector. But you know, it's a big driver for the local economy. It's a big growth area with funding coming here over the next few years, approximately $6 billion of federal funding for the Department of Defense, which only is going to spur more opportunities for technical careers and technical positions. Just some cool things here that we've done. You know, because our history is well over 100 years, we have done very cool work for everywhere from NASA to defense, cyber. We're the largest cyber provider within the federal government, sports, and also within the commercial automotive. And if you read a couple of these, and I believe we can share some of these materials for Ellen, is you can see when I said our pivot towards technology services is the pivot from the top, whether it's the 1940s and 1950s and 60s, to how we're still continuing to operate in that space, but with a much more technical bent. So if you look at the sports one, I'm kind of a sports person. If you look at football, we actually helped the NFL and AFL merger in 1966, but more from a strategy, legal, organizational design, and management consulting perspective. Fast forward to just a few years ago, we helped Major League Baseball. Yes, we bring those skills to the table in terms of management consulting, but as you can see, we did that in terms of cutting edge data analytics and how to bring in analytics and data science into not only the experience for the fans in terms of how they interact with the sport, but also how the sport can become better as a whole through adopting cutting edge data analytics. So you can see we still have these great relationships and still cool areas in which we support various clients, but the nature of that work is evolving in terms of how the company is branding itself and how we're looking at what our core capabilities are. Here, it's a little bit, I wanted to talk about this because it does underpin basically how we operate as a firm. Our core values are 5 simple statements, as you can see on the left. And you know, every company has a mission statement, every company has core values, but just about 5 or 6 years ago, we used to have a list of, I think, 10 to 20 different core values that were almost 2 to 3 sentences long each, and it was very hard for people to connect with them. So we actually shrunk those to very deliberate and I think kind of powerful words. And these 5 core values really not only underpin the company's, how we think of ourselves, but really how we operate. So not only from how we operate within the community and how we operate to one another, but it's even how we operate in our work. So are we bringing these 5 core values to our everyday delivery and not in a holistic way? And we bake that into everything that we do. So I like to think that they're not catchphrases, and that they are kind of reinforced in a lot of positive ways and really do help, I think, what I think is a really great culture and place to work. You know, again, I said I've been there for 7 years. I hope that this is the place I'm here the rest of my career, because everything that I thought the firm would be has been in the last 7 years, and I think it's going to get better and better. And then the items on the right are just some of the things that we like to share with folks when they come into the firm. And really, it's just about doing the right thing, right? Being respectful to one another, being respectful to our clients, operating with integrity, operating with ethics, and just do the right thing. And I think if you take these very simple but universal truths, they do provide great service and provides a great place for people to come in every day. This was a slide where I wanted to save a little bit of time because I know that we're talking in terms of a tech fair. If you look at a lot of our branding, if you go to boozallen.com and you look at our capabilities, we will largely, we not only brand ourselves in these 5 buckets, but this is really how we align in terms of what we think, how we operate, and what we market to our clients, what we market internally to our staff, in terms of like, what are our big bets? What are the career paths we should be looking for? These are the things that we consider to be part of our core delivery. And they're in these areas. So one is consulting, which, you know, we invented, I think, management consulting. And so those are some of the things there. But the other 4 are really kind of what we pivoted towards, I mentioned earlier, in the last 20 years, in a very, in a way from R&D to branding to focus to just making it part of our core delivery. One is analytics. And you can see some of the stuff there. We're doing a lot of great work here in the region in terms of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, and a lot of data automation and data platforms. Digital solutions are things that I like to call IT modernization, systems engineering, enterprise architecture. We do have engineering. We're doing a lot of great stuff right now with edge computing, mesh networks, now a lot of great work around 5G, if that's coming. And as you can see there, a lot of Intel, a lot of the technology that supports Intel and surveillance. And then cyber. I said we're the largest cyber provider. And so a lot of the whole gamut within cyber, from ops planning, Intel, engineering, offensive, defensive cyber, incident response, infrastructure hardening. And so these are the core areas. And when we're talking about technology, career paths and jobs, it really is encompassing of all these, with all maybe even niche type of paths and areas to specialize and or to be broad if you want to be more of a general technologist. And so that, I think I'm within the 20 minutes, so I can save a little bit of time for the Q&A. Again, my name is Ed Barnabas. We can share my information. And then we also have Cheryl here, who's online. She's our lead recruiter here in the region, and we're happy now to take some Q&A. So Ellen, are we just going to open it up to folks, or do I need to check the chat?
I can read out the questions to you.
Sure.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I think it'll be easier, so you don't have to go back and forth. Firstly, I think from, let's see, from Amanda. Amanda is asking, what would be a good way to begin your career with Booz Allen with no government experience?
That's a great question. So I like to think that a lot of our clients' problems are somewhat agnostic of space, right? Like whenever you're dealing with, you're going in as a consultant or someone as an outside resource and to come in and help a client, whether it's the government or it's commercial, there's a lot of commonality in terms of the problem sets, right? So whether it's technology, there's still an element of culture change. There's still an element of org design. There's change management. And a lot of the systems and tools from a technology perspective are similar, right? There's modernization, there's cutovers, there's dealing with cost, there's dealing with fidelity across an organization. And I think what I would say is that it can be daunting if you don't have government experience to come in and learn, but I would encourage people is that to have confidence in your skills that you do bring to the table. Everywhere you go, you're gonna have to learn something. And it's, I guess I'm answering the question with the opposite, is that it's less about knowing the space you're going into and having confidence in what you already have, right? And that you have a skill set that you can bring to the table, and that the things that you don't know just become a growth experience for you. And so you'd be surprised at how many places share a lot of commonality in terms of problem sets and what you can actually come in. And if you have a great company that you're coming into and people that will support you, whatever areas that you need to learn, and I know Booz Allen is this way, it just becomes an area for you to grow. But what we look at is that we're gaining someone with a great skill set and a different perspective. So, I like to believe that we have that culture here within Booz Allen. So I hope that answered the question, but it's not as daunting as you might think.
Great, thanks, Ed. Let's see. Iwalani is asking, do you guys have internships opportunities available? Maybe it's a question for Cheryl as well.
We do. We had, and I know Cheryl is extremely passionate about this, and she's been one of our drivers for that. So I'll let her have a minute on this. But yes, we've had internships very strong internship cohorts. We called them the summer games. And we bring in anywhere from 6 to 10 people, depending on each year. This year, unfortunately, due to COVID, this past summer, we weren't able to do that. We thought we could do it virtually, but it was too soon. And so we decided not to have it. But last year in 2019, we had a cohort of 10. And I believe we are offering the internship program for 2021, I believe I don't know if the number is finalized, but yes, we've had a strong history with that and a strong conversion of interns coming into the firm as well, which is amazing. And with 4 just onboarded from 2019 last month as part of my team. And so I couldn't be more excited because they bring a whole new level of energy and thoughts to the team. So we're very excited. But Cheryl, I don't know if anything you wanted to add on that.
I think you covered it, Ed. And by the way, great presentation. I love working with really smart people. One of the things I wanted to highlight about our summer games is it's not just in Honolulu. Booz Allen has 400 interns per summer for 10 weeks. These cohorts are a bit like Shark Tank. They're coming in, they're rapid developing and innovating new ideas. Then they go to our headquarters in McLean and they compete, one team against the other. In Honolulu, with our 10 seats, we have 2 teams of 5. So it's a wonderful experience for those rising, I'd say, juniors to get the experience with a Fortune 500 company. A lot of them do come back. We do have a really strong hire rate of those 400 interns, about 40 to 60% over the course of their graduation years. Like Ed said, we just brought in 4. We had 5 total from the 10. Others went on to do other things, get master's degrees, and we believe at some point they will come back. Thanks for throwing it over to me, Ed. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and just a couple of things. I get excited when I think about the summer games and internship program because of, as Cheryl said, when they come in, they have about 3 months, right, or 2.5 to 3 months to do a challenge. And what I love about it is that it really shows them, so you have to embrace a lot of different things within that. You have to really quickly adapt. You have to think of a problem statement. You have to think of a solution. And we give autonomy to the interns to think of that problem statement and the solution. And then they have to go into an agile type of process, like agile delivery, where they have to adopt a sprint process. They have to show and tell early. It's about early and often feedback, incremental delivery. And so not only are they delivering something at the end, which makes them feel really like very fulfilled, they actually are learning the process in which how we work as technologists in the firm. And so a couple of the things that we have on the hook for next year I get excited about it is, one is using drone technology and analytics. So how can we use drones and an immersive environment so that we can go into dangerous or hazardous places and use drone technology. Another one that I'm excited about is to use blockchain for secure messaging. So how do we take blockchain out of cryptocurrency and the idea of ledgers and distributed databases, and how do we apply it to different types of things? So we're looking at secure messaging, we're looking at blockchain for supply chain management. And so just very cool use cases that we have that when interns come in, we hopefully they have stuff that they get excited about. I get excited about talking about it.
Great, thanks, Ed. If it's okay with you, can you talk a little bit about, coming from a non-technical background into a position with Booz Allen? Because, even for someone like yourself, I remember you sharing the story about your background and it wasn't, completely tech-based. How should someone position themselves in that way?
Absolutely, so it's my favorite thing to talk about because, as you mentioned, my degree. So I originally went to college to play music, and then figured I didn't want to have a degree in music, so I pivoted and did a logical pivot into political philosophy, which doesn't seem that logical. But then I ended up getting my degree in government and politics, and then 2 years later, after I graduated, I played music professionally for a little bit. But then after I graduated 2 or 3 years later, I got into IT. And so I come from that non-traditional IT background. And so that's very near and dear to me. And here I am 20 years later, and I'm the technology lead for, 500-person business, in this region. And the way I like to think about that is that you cannot implement any technology solution without the people and soft side to do that. And so if a client comes to me and says, Ed, I would like to modernize my architecture, or I want to implement, an artificial intelligence for this type of problem set, I could never just bring 10 technologists pretend completely hardcore technologists the problem. I have to bring people who understand how to manage that, how to do change management, maybe how to do costing to that. And so I found that my best and most successful teams have been the teams that had diversity. When I mean diversity in skill set. I've had my best technical project manager in DC spent 6 years in the Peace Corps. My other great technical project manager back here is an English and writing major. And what I found is that if you have basic critical thinking and you have a growth mindset, like you're willing to learn things, if you don't have that technical background, I feel it can be picked up. But I feel like you have to be curious. You have to, well, first you have to like technology. You have to find it cool, right? Like the first reaction is maybe not intimidation, but ooh, I would like to learn that. The second thing is you can bring critical thinking. And then the third is that you, again, I go back to my first thought, and I'm passionate about this, is that you have to have confidence in the skills you do bring to the table. So you can't feel intimidated when you get to a table and there's 5 really smart developers, because there's probably things you can do that they can't. And so you just really need to have a team that embraces that diversity. And then I think technical skills will be picked up as long as you marry it and kind of approach it the right way. But it really does start with that interest and confidence, and going to a place that can nurture that. So that's what happened in my career. I had great advocates, I had a great companies to work for, people believed in me, but I also had the confidence to know what I had to bring to the table, and confidence that I could pick up on some other stuff as well. So again, it's not daunting, it just depends on how much you want to get after.
That's great. And if, you know, Booz Allen, I mean, you showed that slide where you guys covered a couple of different technology areas.
Mm-hmm.
Would there be one area where, you know, you would encourage people to develop skill sets in so that they're more marketable to Booz? Yeah,
I mean, when I say we literally deliver on all that, we literally deliver on all that. So whether your skill set is developers, like full stack developer, backend developer, whether it's data science, whether it's cyber, we have huge market demand for all of those areas. To answer your question a little specifically though, I would say the biggest demand signals here within the region is definitely around data science and data analytics. So a lot of our clients are looking for solutions around machine learning, around artificial intelligence. And the reason being is that if you ask somebody about artificial intelligence 5 years ago, it almost feel like it was in a movie, right? Or something not applicable for them. But now artificial intelligence is very democratized. There's open source algorithms. There are cheaper algorithms. There are out-of-the-box solutions that you could even use for a small business. And so when I think people who want to apply it for their space, they're asking you because they feel like, well, it feels like it's more broad than we think. How can we apply it to us? And so then people come to us and say, how do we do that? And so we have things called machine learning ops, which is kind of very low complex machine learning, all the way up to very complex things like deep learning. So I would say the biggest thing is data analytics, but then with the data analytics comes those ancillary services. To do a data analytics solution, you need to have a modern, what we call a modern stack or modern infrastructure. And so then you now need to have skills for developers and infrastructure and people who do DevOps. And so the segue into technology could be one thing, but then in order to implement it, you're going to need that stuff around it. And so really, I would say for a company of our size and the opportunity we have, we'll take any technology, meaning we have a need for it and we have a place that we can use it. And so really, I would say I would encourage people to pursue what they're passionate about, because that's what they're going to get the most fulfillment out of. And then a company like us can plug them into N number of opportunities. But I would say data science is probably the biggest growth signal that I've seen in my year out here so far.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ed. I think there's a question that came in from Edwin. He's asking about, you know, to my question earlier, he's adding on, how about virtual reality and augmented reality technology? Is there a need for someone with those skill sets?
Absolutely, I can go on about that too. So Cheryl actually has a requisition out for me right now for an immersive developer / designer. So a lot of people may not know, but the immersive industry or the immersive capability is huge within Department of Defense, right? When we're not in wartime, the warfighter or the soldier is basically training. And so by using immersive technologies and AR and VR, you can provide them more cost-effective ways to train by dropping them in an immersive experience. And that's also gives them repetition, right? A lot of training is about repetition, and having to do that in real time is very expensive. There's a lot of logistics. So we actually do we have a $1 billion contract with the Army. We have other large contracts with the DoD just dedicated to immersive. And so we just delivered in the past 6 months 3 different immersive solutions here, just within the region. One around everything from jumping out of an airplane in different geographies to something a little bit more tactical, like how to do Humvee or tank maintenance. But we can replicate that whole environment. And so the question was, what do we do there? We do everything from end to end. We have people that just do the illustration and artwork. We have people that do all the development. We have people that do the immersive design experience. And we've actually hired people from the gaming industry because the gaming industry is notorious for like overworking people, not a lot of benefits. And so they come here and able to do the same work, but they get to do it with a lot more kind of the fringe and kind of personal benefits that they don't get in the industry. So a lot of great stuff there. And we actually have an open rec for that right now.
Awesome. So Edwin, I hope Ed answered your question. We've come to the end of the session for Booz Allen. So I want to thank Ed and Cheryl for joining us. If you have more questions for them, they will be in a separate breakout room. The link will be shared in the chat function. So feel free to join that breakout room to ask Ed and Cheryl more questions regarding Booz Allen and opportunities with Booz Allen. So again, thank you so much, Ed and Cheryl, for your time today. If you decide to stay in this session, we will have Kathleen Lee joining us, and giving a talk about the top 3 tips for resume writing. So feel free to stay on. If not, you can always join the breakout session and come back here later. So again, thank you so much, Ed and Cheryl.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to welcome Kathleen Lee to join us. Hey, Kathleen.
Hey, good morning, Ellen, HTDC, Entrepreneurs Sandbox, and everyone that is on this program today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so Kathleen, let me just quickly introduce you to our audience, and we can start your presentation after. So after 2 decades of professional experience in the government affairs, public relations, hospitality, and nonprofit industries, Kathleen Lee founded Kathleen Lee Consulting. And she finds joy in helping people align their talents, interests, and passion with careers that are meaningful to them. Along with being a small business owner, she's also a communications professional for one of Hawaii's top PR firms and a video journalist for an internationally broadcast program. Passionate about giving back to the community, Kathleen is the host of Think Tech Hawaii's Connecting Hawaii Business Civic Engagement Show and a member of a local neighborhood board, as well as a volunteer contributing writer for one of the state's oldest community publications. So lots of accolades over there, Kathleen. I believe you had a couple of slides that you wanted to share with the audience today?
I do. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's see what we have here. Let me try to find that real quick. And again, thank you everyone for having me on here today. Let me just open up my presentation, and this is going to be top 3 tips to enhance your resume. And for the purposes of this discussion, we are going over a resume as opposed to a CV or a curriculum vitae, which is more comprehensive. So the difference is that a resume is more of a summary of your professional educational skills, as opposed to a CV, which is a comprehensive document that chronicles everything. So let me just share that real quick. Okay, are you folks able to see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And thank you again for your patience as I maneuver through my settings here. Okay, so like I mentioned, we are going to go over the top 3 tips to enhance your resume. And again, thank you, Ellen, for that wonderful introduction. To reintroduce my company, we are focused on connecting people with their desired careers by offering, along with resumes, cover letters, professional rebranding, and interview coaching, and anything writing related. So our mission is to help people align what they would like to do with the skills that they have and the interests that they're passionate about. These are the industries that we specialize in: government, hospitality, marketing and communications, and nonprofit. And this goes along with Ellen's introduction. And I started the company with the focus of implementing my professional background when it comes to helping people out. So like I mentioned, we are going to go over tips for your resume. And the overarching theme of what I will be giving tips on is to keep things simple for 2 out of many main reasons. So the average number of resumes in a job posting is about 200. And on top of that, recruiters and employers spend about 10 to 20 seconds. I just put the number of seconds on there, but it has varied. If you do research on the actual number of seconds, it has ranged from 6 seconds to 30 seconds. But the point is, recruiters and employers typically literally just glance at a resume, which makes it so that you have to be, or your document has to stand out. So for our first tip, very basic, again, going back to basics, make sure that the contact information on the documents that you are turning in is easily accessible. So the 3 main things that employers and recruiters typically ask for are your resume, your cover letter, and a references sheet. This is just a reminder, and a lot, like what I've found out this year, especially with the pandemic, is that people are almost rushing to go over the resume, since we're now in an economy where people who have been in their jobs for 10 to 15 or even 20 years are now being displaced because of the effects of COVID-19. So again, here is basic guideline on what you should put on there. Adding your nickname is okay. So let's say your name is Elizabeth. You can put Elizabeth, quotation marks, Liz, and then your last name. Your email address, and this is very crucial, again, with the 10 to 20 second glance that employers and recruiters make when it comes to your resume. A simple email address is it's vital for them to take a glance at, and it almost gives an instant impression of like where you are or how you've updated your resume and your contact information. So make sure it's simple, it's easy to remember, and we do recommend your first and your last name. Very surprising, back to basics reminder, but I see some people, when it comes to my clients, still using something that they've come up with, like the surfer person, or, you know, like hot girl 77. Like, while those are okay when it comes to your personal, you know, interactions, when it comes to email, your resume, the email that you attach to your resume should be something a bit more professional. 1, so it's easier for the recruiters, and 2, it gives an impression that, you know, like you are taking things seriously. Phone number, address, because everything, or a lot of things, are going online these days, putting in the city and the state is okay. So you don't necessarily have to put the entirety of your address. And if you have a LinkedIn account, type in the whole link. Even if you are turning something in, make sure that it's not a hyperlink. So just type out the whole link. And if you have a website, place that on there as well. So this is an example of a pretty clean, everything that I had just talked about from the previous slide. You know, your name, very simple, email address, your phone number, city and state, the link of your LinkedIn account if you haven't, and I hope you have started one, and a website. So our second tip is to highlight your accomplishments and accolades. A lot of times people in general, I've noticed, struggle with talking about themselves. And so when I start doing their resumes, that's when they get refreshed or realize that they have gone through certain trainings or certifications that are significant, that their company had paid for them to actually take, and that may be relevant to their next positions. So internal awards, certifications, and use action words as well. Keep in mind that recruiters look for leaders. So I would like you to, just to get a different perspective, place yourself in a business owner's mindset. If you are looking for employees, you want the best. You don't want someone that's just, okay, well, this person can do the job. Sometimes you do, but for the most part, you want someone who can do the best, right? So it helps you out. There are people that you want to invest in more. So for you as an applicant, keep that in mind, that recruiters and employers are looking for leaders. Think about what you have started, innovated, or improved, because if you have been in your position for a while, I am positive that you have done one of those three or all of them. It doesn't matter what you've done. I'm sure you have, in some form or another, improved whatever you've been doing for the company. Focus on your results rather than your company's results, and avoid regurgitating job descriptions. So I've gotten a lot of requests where people are like, hey, this is the job that I am applying for. Could you put that on your resume? And I tell folks that your employers and recruiters already wrote it, so they don't need to see what they wrote regurgitated back to them. You can use keywords so they can make the connection, but use the space in your resume. And again, I recommend 1 to 2 pages. Use that space to highlight what you have done and what you have done in an outstanding manner. So here are some action words, examples of action words that you can use, to convey leadership or assertiveness when it comes to your positions. There are 10 on there, but there's plenty more, of course. This is just an example. Advocate, establish, implement, increase, lead. So that's the rest of the list. My favorite is spearhead. It just seems very assertive. I recommend the active verb when you're when you're editing your resume. So a passive one would be something like, I was responsible for insert job description here, which is not really saying what you did. It's basically just saying, well, this is what was given to me. Whereas if you changed it to, I spearheaded something, it tells whoever is looking at your resume that you did something and you did it in a way that made you a leader in whatever it was that, what was designated to you or what your task was. This right here is just a reminder for people to be mindful of the tenses that they use. So in your current position, use the present tense. If you are employed, if you're currently employed and you are looking for a position, make sure that the verbs that you use are in the present tense because you are still doing those tasks. Some examples are advocate, lead, and manage. Past tense would be applicable to anything else that you're not currently doing. And so again, advocated, led, managed. And this is my third tip is to keep your college information to your school, your degree, and applicable honors. And a lot of times we don't notice it, but as much as possible, what I recommend is for people to make it so their document minimizes any sort of bias, particularly ageism. So if you put your graduating date, people might assume that you're a certain age, and depending on the people, a lot of times we try not to have biases, but they do exist. So to give yourself the best chance of having a resume that's not really affected by that, omit the years of your graduation date unless they're requested, which I don't think a lot of jobs do. And then unless you are applying for scholarships or grants, just omit your GPA. So I'm going to come back again next week to delve more into it, but like I mentioned, this is just a refresher for individuals who are now finding themselves in a place where they have to either restart or revamp their resume. So again, I want to thank HTDC and Entrepreneurs Sandbox for giving me this opportunity today. And here is my contact information. If you do want to contact me for your resume, from the month of October to December, we donate $10 of every transaction to the Domestic Violence Action Center, especially since this month is DV Awareness Month. So I think I covered, oh, I have 5 minutes left, but you know, we can go ahead and launch into the Q&A.
It's great, Kathleen. No, actually, we have a little bit of time, but yeah, we do have questions coming in. So Vince is asking, are there employer requests for a video profile attached to a resume?
That's actually a really good question, and thank you for asking that. Some do. I have had some of my clients go over that, and that's part of our services as well, which is interview coaching. And some companies have made it so you turn in something that they send you some questions and you send your responses over. So yes, some companies are beginning to do that. So that's a good note to watch for as well. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. I think another question that I had was, you know, people always talk about one-page resumes.
Mm-hmm.
How common is that these days? Is it still one page, or can you actually spill over to two?
I would recommend 1 to 2 pages. There are occasions when, so it's easier if you have stayed in a particular job or position for like 10 to 15 years. But the trend that I have noticed is that people will stay like an average of like 2 to 3, 5 years is long around this time, probably not like 10, 15 years ago, but because of how the economy is going, how job formats are going, and with us wanting to kind of try different things, a lot of the job descriptions that we have are now broken into different positions. So 1 to 2 pages is okay, but I recommend going back to maybe like 10. 15 is kind of pushing it, unless you feel like, your 15-year experience is relevant to whatever it is that you're applying for. But I would recommend 10 years. That typically fits in a resume. And what I have been doing lately too is putting 2 columns, a narrow one and like a wider one, for employers to be able to see quickly, like at a glance, like your experience as well as your education and other extracurricular activities that you may have. So 1 to 2 pages is okay.
Okay, so well, in full transparency, Kathleen actually helped me with my resume, and I think she did a really great job. So if any of you need resume writing services, definitely reach out to her. So Danisha has a question for you, Kathleen. She is asking, do you have any resume tips for applying for jobs with skill sets requirements that may extend beyond your own or what you have?
Yes. Absolutely, Danisha. Thank you for asking that question. So one of the many things that I have done in my business is help people out with transitioning from particular industries. One example is I had a client who transitioned from the hospitality to the medical field. So that particular person had, their target was to be a nurse, but they didn't have the educational background. However, they wanted to be in that arena. So what I recommended was, because the hospitality background was a lot of like administrative and like marketing tasks, I recommended that same type of placement, but like in like a clinical hospital setting. So tie in whatever you currently have with the position that you are going for. Because a lot of times, how do I say this? The positions that we're applying for, we're kind of experienced with it, but for the most part, we don't know what we're facing. So what we do know are the skills that we are armed with. And for the most part, if you are aiming for something that is outside of what you believe your skill sets are, if they're limited, tap into other things. Do you have extracurricular activities that may be relevant to whatever you're applying for? So let's say you're looking for an accounting position? Did you do accounting in a nonprofit that helped out that particular organization with their budget? So, you know, like expand your thinking so that it's not just limited to your job descriptions, but also to your volunteer and community involvement, because people look into that. Employers want folks who are well-rounded.
Great. I hope we answered your question, Denicia. Stefania has a question for you. She's asking, do you recommend only including previous jobs that show skills applicable to the one you're applying for on your resume?
Stefania, thank you for that question. Okay, let me think about that for like 5 seconds. Do you recommend only including previous jobs that show skills applicable? Ooh, it depends. So it kind of ties into Denicia's question, right? Like if there's a job that is, you know, they're asking for things that you may not have had experience in, or if you're applying for something and you think that your previous experiences may not be relevant, you can always make something relevant. It's hard for me to tell people to take something out, especially if they don't feel that that particular position that they held may not have anything to do with their current position, because you've spent a number of years on there. So let's say you're applying for like a government position, but this entire time you have been in hospitality. There are certain like bridges that the two industries have in common. So don't discount something that you feel may not be relevant to the current, you know, the previous positions that you had, because you could pull something on there. Maybe you were good at like organizing people, and maybe the position that you're gunning for is looking for someone who is able to round people up. So just tie that in. And again, like I can help with that, because that's one of my specialties actually, is tying in what you have done previously with something that you want to do. So Stefania, I hope that answers your question.
Great. So I have a question on my own, and I think
You're welcome.
yeah, so a lot of resumes are kind of submitted online or through online systems these days, and they go past, you know, like human vetting process, right? So there's all this talk about, you know, making sure that you have the right keywords in there so that the algorithm or the system picks it up. What's your take on that?
I think we had this discussion before too, Ellen. You're right. So I do recommend that, you know, while you should not regurgitate the job descriptions, yes, pick up keywords that you feel may be pertinent to the information, and is something that the companies may pick up as well. So something that you think may not be relevant, or you think may be common knowledge, may not be to the system. What if they're looking for, I think Ellen and I had gone over this, where the discussion was something along the lines of, hey, everyone knows Microsoft Office, as an example. And it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't include that because it's such common knowledge. But sometimes there are employers that put that in their requisites. So just add that on there, because again, Microsoft Office encompasses a lot of things, right? PowerPoint, Excel, all the other good stuff that you need to use. So yeah, keywords are important. And while they're not, again, not to regurgitate the whole thing, you know, they're not super duper crucial, but at the same time, it helps you out. So the goal of your resume, whether it's a tangible one that you're turning in or an online resume, is to increase your odds of being selected, and then increase your odds even more of being selected from the 200 people that have turned in for that particular position.
Great, thanks.
Sure.
We don't have any other questions coming in, so I'll just ask one of my own.
Sure.
I know, Kathleen, you also look at LinkedIn, right? And you know, you make sure that LinkedIn profiles are up to date and accurate. How do you use LinkedIn to differentiate yourself from the resume? Or is it kind of, do you see it as an extension, or do you see it as a replication of your resume?
I think again, it's a reflection of you. So because a lot of people are turning online now, and employers are actually looking through LinkedIn, your resume and your LinkedIn account should be, you know, fairly similar. But the good thing about LinkedIn is you can add your photo, whereas, you know, that's not really recommended for turning in resumes. But with LinkedIn, you can do that. So it gives your employers a better idea of who they're hiring. On top of that, you can add descriptors to, you know, your profile. You can put entrepreneur, or, you know, like accounting expert, or government affairs professional. So you can do that. Take advantage of the format of LinkedIn, and like whether it's on LinkedIn or your resume and you're turning that in, just remember that, again, you need to stand out, and that's why you need to be very simple, concise, and straight to the point when it comes to the words that you pick when representing yourself.
Great, thanks. I think another question, wait, let's see. I'm not seeing, okay, so Casey's asking, what's your take on messaging a recruiter or hiring manager via LinkedIn to express a strong interest in a job after applying for a job?
Oh, hey, Casey, how are you? Thank you for joining us today. That's what LinkedIn is for. So LinkedIn is for networking. Not only that, but it also allows you to reach out to people that you have worked with before and ask them for recommendations. So my take on it is that it's perfectly fine. It's just the art of saying thank you, but like taken on like an online platform. And I'm actually familiar with Casey because I used to work with her. So yay, thank you for coming on, Casey. But yes, so it's perfectly fine to reach out to a recruiter or a hiring manager via LinkedIn. Use your resources. That's what they're there for. So that's actually a really good question. Thank you for posing that today.
I think kind of adding on to Casey's question, would you actually, you know, bake in some lead time before reaching out to the recruiter? And how many times will you actually reach out after that if you don't hear back on anything?
I've actually done it, for me anyway, I've done it within 24 to 48 hours. Because if you are going up against, let's put that number out there again, if you're going up against 200 people, you want to stand out. And in order for you to stand out, you have to be relevant in their minds. So reaching out within 24 to 48 hours is recommended. If you want to wait, like I'd say wait about a week. That gives them enough time. And, you know, from there, see if you hear anything back from them. If you don't, like give it a few more days, but, you know, 24 to 48 hours for the initial acknowledgement of the interview, and then about a week to follow up and be like, hey, what's going on? So.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask, you know, put it out there and ask for one more question. If we don't have one more question, then, you know, I'm going to let Kathleen go. But before that, I just wanted to share that, share her email address. Well, her email address is on the screen. So, wait, is it? Oh, that's your website. So I'll share your
it's
email
on there
address
too.
as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you click on the website, there's a button, there's a contact button on there. You can even do KathleenLeeConsulting.com/contact to reach out to me. And my phone number is on there as well. And I'm also on social media, on Facebook and Instagram, and am responsive to all of those mediums. So.
Awesome. And we have another session with Kathleen that where we'll be doing a deeper dive into resume writing on October 20th. So the link and the event URL is in the chat. So, you know, check it out, RSVP, if you want to learn more about resume writing and do a deeper dive with Kathleen. So once again, well, Casey has one more question for you. So sorry, Kathleen, before we let you go, one last question. If you can find a direct email to a hiring manager, is it too aggressive to email them to express your interest in the job they're hiring for?
You know, I'm a proponent of if you want something, go get it. So my answer to that is no, unless they're very specific and they say, okay, you can only apply through like these online mediums. And real quick, while the resume is a very important part of the job application process, it is just one part. We all know that it also depends on your networks, you tapping into like who you know, or, you know, people that may be able to vouch for you and recommend you for particular industries. So my answer to that is no. If you want something, go get it. And if you find the hiring manager's email address, you know, do it in a way that's tactful, but also in a way that says, hey, I want this position enough that I found your email address, so please consider me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathleen. And I think for the rest of the people in the audience, if reach out to her at any time. If not, join us for our event on October 20th for a deeper dive into resume writing. Again, thank you, Kathleen, for your time, and we will see you on the 20th of this month.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, and Ellen, HTDC, and Entrepreneurs Sandbox. So I hope everyone has a good rest of the day and rest of the week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So for those of you staying on, we will be having two representatives from Hawaii's leading technology research and engineering firm, Oceanit, who will be joining us today. Ian Kitajima is the Director of Corporate Development, and Linda Kawamura is Oceanit's HR Manager. So I would like to invite Ian and Linda to join us. Hey, Ian.
Aloha, everybody.
Okay, so I know Oceanit has something really exciting planned for all of you today. Ian, I believe you're going to be taking the audience on a really short tour of the office, and Linda,
Yep.
you'll be taking over and kind of sharing more about Oceanit and the opportunities available. Correct?
Correct. So Linda will be
Yeah, I think you're mute,
leading
sorry.
off.
Linda's
Yeah,
mute.
so-
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I can't seem to get it to, let me try to get it in slideshow mode.
So I'm seeing your email right now, Linda. So maybe you just need to choose the other tab. So when you do switch,
Yeah.
there are different tabs that you can choose from. You just need to choose
Yeah,
the.
hold on, let me just share the correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Great, I can see
Sorry
it.
about that. Okay, great. Let me try to get the slideshow mode. It's not working.
Oh, I think just click on that PowerPoint, yes, PowerPoint icon at the bottom, slideshow icon.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
there
it
you go.
is. Okay, great. All right. So thanks for the opportunity to share Oceanit with you. I'm going to start off. And so 35 years ago, Dr. Patrick Sullivan founded Oceanit. Now we have 200 multidisciplinary staff, a third of which have PhDs. And Oceanit drives deep science to real-world applications and what we call mind to market. Is transdisciplinary minds in a diverse areas of science and technology work with and create value for the customer. Then we engage with the markets to capture that value in delivering products and services through private equity financial spinouts, co-development, partnerships, licensing, and direct manufacturing. We practice what we call intellectual anarchy to transcend the disciplines, drive disruptive innovation, and focus on human-centered solutions for our global community. And recently, our founder, Patrick Sullivan, published a book called Intellectual Anarchy, if you're interested in learning more about our values and how we do things. This is our business model. Basically, we work with our clients in solving global problems that are impossible to solve. And so what do we look for? And the key to achieving our mission of solving problems are our Oceanit employees. They're curious, passionate, love to learn, resilient, engaged, collaborative, independent, resourceful, team-oriented, and motivated to wanting to make an impact. These are some technical skills depending on the position, but generally everyone has communications, people relation skills, creative, detail-oriented, and are organized. Currently, these are our opportunities. It changes daily, so as of today, you will find these positions on our website, but I can't, I don't know what it'll be the next, tomorrow or even in next week or so. It changes definitely. Actually, this is a typo, sorry about that, but we do have all of these current vacancies. And now Ian will take us on a virtual tour.
Good morning, everybody. Linda, can you stop sharing your screen, and then I will. Hopefully, everybody can see what I'm gonna do. So So good morning, everybody. So I'm gonna give you a. I'm here actually at Oceanit's corporate offices here in downtown Honolulu. We're right off 4th Street Mall, and I'm gonna take you around for a quick tour, and I want to just check how much time here. So I have about maybe 10 minutes, I think, or so, to give you a tour around Oceanit. And I'm just gonna start off with our petting zoo, which is behind me. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm gonna flip my camera around and I'm gonna give you a tour. Okay, so anyway, so when you come through Oceanit, we actually have this really gigantic kitchen. Not too many people are here right now because we've kind of staggered all of our work time. But one thing that we do know is the kitchen is a very important place for us. Lots of people collide there, get together there. And so a lot of collaborations formed where people get together. So you'll find that at Oceanit, there's lots of open spaces where you can actually get together. In fact, I'm just gonna go around the corner here and give you a tour back here. So I work back here, but we have a design lab back here where we just had our Monday morning meeting, but because Monday was a holiday, we actually had it today. But this is kind of a design lab. It's everything's on wheels, so you can reset up this room any configuration you want. We have trainings here. We do all kinds of meetings in this area. Some of you may have heard about our COVID-19 rapid test kit. So we've developed about a 10-minute saliva-based test kit that doesn't require any equipment or technology. Basically, with saliva, we will detect if you have the COVID-19 virus. So the team is actually have some things set up here because they're actually building test kits as well. So that's kind of like just a really sweep of one part of the office. There's another side of the office, but I'll show you. This is kind of our technology petting zoo. And so when you come to Oceanit someday, you'll see there's a wall here. And this wall is going through some renovations, but I'm gonna walk you through and show you some things. And then we'll end with I'll try and go over to our micro fab center and show you also the machine shop real quick. So, so Oceanit does, basically, we focus on solving problems that haven't been solved before. So we really work on very hard problems. And when you work on really hard problems, it's best to have a team of really smart people, but from all different backgrounds. If you're trying to innovate around, for example, transportation, if everyone's a transportation engineer, it's gonna probably be a lot harder to break out of the mode of a transportation engineer. So we want at least one on the team, but what we also want is people from other disciplines and other fields, you know, scientists, engineers. So you're talking like maybe a physicist, maybe an electrical engineer, a mechanical engineer, environmental, chemical engineer. Just a diversity of people enable innovation to occur. So diversity is really, really important. So when I show you these different things we work on, note that it's not a singular person, but really a team of people from really different backgrounds that have to come together to solve these problems and innovate these solutions that I'm going to show you. So I'll start with, this one is probably the most common one you're going to see. And this is, a lot of these things here, it's a petting zoo. So they actually are working demonstrations as well. So this is actually a technology we innovated and developed for wounded soldiers. So somebody gets injured, how do you know what their vital signs are pretty continuously? So you want to be able to continuously monitor them. But say you're a medic and you have 8 patients to deal with, it's very hard. So we essentially invented what I think of as the Star Trek sickbay bed. So if you ever watch Star Trek and you see those guys laying on the bed and it picks up your vital signs without attaching anything to them, that's what we did here at Oceanit. And so so this actually unit is actually connected to this chair. It's probably hard to put a bed here, so we put a chair here. So when you sit on this chair, in about literally in about 5 to 10 seconds, it will pick up your vital signs, your heart rate and your respiration rate. And the reason why there's a teddy bear here is because this technology, which we developed more than, 15 years ago, is now super, super tiny, and it can actually fit inside of this teddy bear. So I actually have a demonstration of a teddy bear that is wireless. It's kind of because of cell phone technology. That technology has made all of this small enough to put in a teddy bear. So literally when you hug this teddy bear, it will pick up your vital signs. So imagine, you know, if you're a young kid and you're at the doctor's, you're already kind of feeling really stressed out. It's very hard to get a good vital sign if you're stressed out. But if I give you the teddy bear and it actually can give me the vital signs, I get a better sense as a doctor how well you are just from that, okay? So, and you know, you can imagine what you could do with these kinds of technologies and other applications. So this technology was spun out into another company, and now that company has licensed the technology to go into automotive seats. So you'll see in the future, car seats will have this technology built into the car seat. So if you're kind of getting stressed while you're driving, the system will tell you. Okay, and that's just one technology. Okay, so as I sweep through this, I'm gonna maybe do a couple more here because I know I'm running out of time. So one of the newest projects that's been ongoing is something we call DIRT. And we call it DIRT because it kind of looks like dirt, but the thing that this can but the problem many times is it's very hard to stop the bleeding. So this is kind of the next generation of kind of what's a blood coagulation material. So it will instantaneously stop the bleeding. But what's nice about this material is that it doesn't hurt so much. Many of these types of materials almost are like burning you. They're kind of like cauterizing the wound to stop the bleeding. This doesn't do that. And so this is the next generation, and we're developing this for the Army, okay? Let me see, I have a boot here. This is a boot that the US Marines wear. And the problem with this boot, well, the great thing about this boot is that it's super high quality. It keeps the water out when it gets wet. But the problem with this boot is that once you get water in this boot, it can take 7 to 12 days for this boot to dry. And I don't know if any of you have been gone on a hike all day. And I've been hiking in wet wet shoes before. After about a day, your feet is just trapped. You're just all messed up. So imagine walking in boots that are wet for days. So all of a sudden, nobody can walk. So but the problem is you can't stop fires. If you start burning fires, the bad guys see, oh, look, there's a bunch of guys over here with fires burning, right? You can see that. So what we had to do is we invented a cloth. Now, this is like pretty normal stuff, but inside of this cotton fabric is a special material that will absorb and pull in all of the moisture and water. So in about 6 hours, this boot will be dry because it'll suck all the moisture and water into this towel. And then this towel you can hang on your pack and let that dry. So basically we're just transferring the water out of the boot. This other thing right here is one last thing before there's so many things, but this is actually what's called a hostile fire detection system. So if people are shooting at you, it's like, where's the bullets coming from? Well, using this system, we can detect the shooter a mile away in 1/10 of a second. So before the bullets ever show up, we've already spotted where the shooters are, okay? We do lots of material things, and I'm gonna just show you this one. This is what's called a super hydrophobic coating, and I don't know if you can see that, but this coating was designed to prevent icing. It's an incredible coating to prevent corrosion and keep moisture away from things. And okay, what else? What do we got? Got tons of stuff. We got actually even a robot here. So really the work we do here at Oceanit is driven by the customers and what they're interested, what they have to try and solve, as well as your passion in certain fields. I'm gonna just go around this corner really quick because I wanted to show you this. It's kind of a micro fab center, and lots of work goes on in here as well. There's actually several labs here at Oceanit. So this is kind of the 3D printing side of the house. We have, I want to say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 different 3D printers. These are the resin-based ones. This uses a special laser, right, to make the samples. And they literally look like pretty much finished samples. Again, these are all resin-based. This is the bigger version. Oh, you can even see one in here. I think this is a finished printing, but somebody hasn't taken it out. Of course, laser cutter. This is actually an interesting 3D printer because this one actually can use nylon and even carbon fiber. So it can make very, very strong, but also flexible 3D parts. This is our big industrial one. And then we have a couple of different consumer ones that actually work really well. You can actually see some of the samples that got printed. And some of these systems really allow you to use all kinds of different materials. I'm looking for my canoe, but I don't see it. But I have a canoe around here somewhere. And it's actually printed using wood particles. And so when you stand it up and you paint it, or you stain it, it actually looks like a wood canoe because it actually is wood. And then lastly, I just kind of peer into we have a machine shop back here as well. Way back here is a CNC mill. And I want you to see, there are people who are authorized to use this tool. And so the question becomes, what skills and tools are you getting skilled in that is in your toolbox, right? So only these 4 people have this tool in their toolbox. They're the only ones that can actually officially use this piece of equipment. So you really want to get, as you go along in school and your education, get more and more skills and experiences and tools that you can use to even do things like this, right? So these are regulators for oxygen mask project that we have and so on. So anyway, hopefully that was a lot. And so there's actually another side to the office on the other way, but I'll turn it over to Ellen. Ellen, thanks so much. Questions, if anybody has them.
Hey, thanks so much, Ian. That's awesome. It's so exciting. I've always wanted to visit Oceanit, actually. Never got the chance to do so. When are you guys going to be doing the tours again? Maybe in a year from now after?
I hope so. Yeah, we normally have quarterly tours.
Sure.
And so
yeah.
hopefully eventually, or again, if there's a big enough group, then we can schedule it. But yeah, as soon as I think, we can do this in a safe way. Yeah, we'd love to have people come and visit. But until then, we can do the virtual tour and take you around Oceanit. We didn't get a chance to go downstairs to the other labs. In fact, there are many other labs here at Oceanit. I just showed you really just 2 areas and 1 lab, but there are many other areas. So hopefully in the future, you can come and visit.
It's great. I think I had a question. The rapid testing kits, when are they going to be deployed?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're actually started working with Queens Medical Center, and we're hoping to get all the data in and send it into the FDA. So hopefully we'll get the FDA approvals by the end of the year. That's what we're shooting for.
That's cool.
And my work is I'm working on the manufacturing side with our partners in Korea. So large scale manufacturing, like into the millions of test kits per month, the initial manufacturing will probably be in South Korea, where most of my work takes me.
That's great. Yeah, can't wait for it to come out into the market. So
Yeah.
let's go back to questions from the audience here. I think I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrongly, but Elin is asking, do all software engineering positions require some kind of security clearance? Linda, I think you.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
replied
I
to-
answered it. Yeah. Okay. Not all software engineering positions require security clearance, but if you have a security clearance that provides opportunities for you to work on all the different projects that we have, because some of them do require security clearance because they're Department of Defense positions.
Great. And so I think, Linda, you shared a lot of different positions in Oceanit. are there, would all these different positions require highly technical backgrounds, or are there some that, are more business driven?
It varies. We have positions that we post also in Houston. So in Houston, we have a labor position in materials as well as an administrative type person. Here on Oahu, we have an executive assistant position open, but the rest of them are technical in nature. So either in software engineering or in the sciences area, applied physicist, lab technician, senior scientist.
Great, thanks. I think there's a question from Vince, but I think it's more of an Ian question. He's asking, does Oceanit submit requests for US patents for its inventions, or is that left to the customer?
Oh yeah, so I can show you right here. Actually, Oceanit has I call it the wall of patents. This is the wall of patents, and these are just part of the wall because so Oceanit files many patents. We have many patents. In fact, there's another wall here. We can't actually fit them all. We probably file and get as many patents as almost the University of Hawaii at some level. So at any one time, we may have 15 to 20 different patents being processed or going on. But it is a business decision, by the way. Part of the patenting process too is to consider the innovation itself beyond what it initially was designed for. So many times the customer, like the Department of Defense, who asks us to develop dirt, right, come up with a faster way to stop bleeding.
Sorry, Ian, I think you're breaking up a little bit. Oops.
Can you guys hear me? Sorry.
Nope. Maybe you can try again.
Is my Wi-Fi signal going out, Ellen?
Yeah. Now it's better now.
Okay, maybe I got to stand away from something.
From dirt.
But anyway, so yeah, we file a lot of patents, and patents many times are driven from a business decision. It has to also be driven by a business decision. If we do not have customers or think about how that technology will be used, you can spend a lot of money on patenting work, but it really goes nowhere because it is very expensive. So we have to selectively decide what's going to get patented. Yeah.
Sure. Hope that answers your question, Vince. Denicia is asking, do you have any advice for transitioning career professionals who are interested in tech or software positions?
For us is get as much experience as you can. I think that's along with the actual knowledge that you could get at a university or with vocational educational institutions. But the actual experience, even if it's volunteer work, that would be helpful if you want to change your career.
And if I think part of it too, if you're a more seasoned person, so much also of the work we have here is managing projects, managing resources, managing customers. But if you have a technical, somewhat, you don't have to have a technical background, but you have no doubt that the initial thing you'll see is we're always looking for technical people to help with projects. But I want to say it's also, if you're not going to be super technical, but you're coming more from a customer kind of project standpoint, that you have comfort dealing with new technologies and new things. So much of what Oceanit does is about change. And so what we are today will probably be very different than what we are in 5 years. So Oceanit really doesn't stay the same for very long. So what we really look for are people who are constantly growing and wanting to learn. They're not necessarily satisfied doing the same thing, over and over again for the next 20 years. So hope that helps give you a broader flavor as well. So we want you to have this technical ability if you can, but you have to be this kind of person that's willing to grow and learn and work with other people. So hopefully that helps you.
Yeah, I think that's that's great. So I think the other question kind of to add on to that is, if someone comes from a non-technical background but has very strong project management, go-to-market kind of experience, how do they communicate that to you, especially if the role is kind of blended in a way?
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Kato.
Ian.
I was just going to say that role, we have roles like that here at Oceanit, but they are very rare. And the people that are in those roles are pretty unique. Not to say that couldn't be you. It's just that we have much fewer of those positions available. And so what you find is those roles tend to be filled eventually, maybe in the short term, by somebody who's on the technical side, but actually wants to move to the business side.
Mm-hmm.
And so they start kind of working in that area and eventually maybe spend almost all their time on the business side. If it's purely from the business side, they really have to be able to show us results, and actually almost like, I want to say, bring the business with them, because if you're on the business side, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to bring in new business into the organization that the engineers and scientists work on. Not to say they don't do the same, they actually do a lot of that work, but this is maybe a different approach where it's purely a business thing. So really the results and the ability to have a big network and be able to bring those kinds of projects to the company pretty quickly is probably one of the key things we'll look at.
Yeah. So ideally, it would be someone actually that has a technical background initially, and then maybe have gotten into business arena. So that would be, so generally they can talk the language on the technical side with the engineers and scientists, as well as relate to the clients and what their needs are.
Mm-hmm. So I think, just curious, how many people are there right now in Oceanit? Like number of employees?
About 160 or so.
It's a pretty big team.
But we've gone up to higher levels too. Mm-hmm.
And you are hiring, it seems like you're hiring very aggressively, new roles and positions.
Yeah, we do. We're trying to anticipate what the needs are in the future. And we need to make sure that there's project work for them to do when they first come on board, but also for the long term, because we're not, one and done kind of thing. So once they come on board, we want them to be able to, so if they have a breadth of experiences, that would be extremely helpful, so that we, not only for the current projects, but in the future also.
Is there a typical average kind of a project, timeline that an individual works on when they join the company? Or do they work on multiple projects at the same time, or how does it?
Sure. It'll start off relatively slow. There's 1 or 2 projects at a time, but then as their skills, and then some projects are actually, very intense, where there's a lot of work for that. But many times, if there's many smaller projects, you'll be working on several over time, some projects, and then you're also expected down the line to bring in your own projects. So through different avenues, like the Small Business Innovation Fund, the HTDC projects, and if you do your own proposals and then you bring in that, then you become the project investigator for those projects also.
And those projects will be something around your interest, right?
Correct.
Or your expertise.
Right. We also have an Oceanit Innovation Fund, where if you have a passion, you can actually apply for internal funding for that position, and that kind of works. So you can bring in your own interests and passions to the table. And many times what happens is we get a startup money for that, to do that projects, and then down the line you can actually use what you've developed here at Oceanit to propose for larger projects.
It's great. So I think before we kind of end off, either Ian or Linda, what is the most exciting project you guys are working on right now?
Ian?
Well, it's probably the Assure. It's probably the Assure 19 test kit.
Yeah,
That's that was envisioned in January in a sense, and then just really started going crazy in March when the pandemic started hitting. So yeah, I want to say that's a unique project because that was not planned for, but it is taking a lot of resources from different parts of the company. But this is where having diversity on the team and the kind of people we have to basically just shift all the different priorities and manage things to work on something that's really a game changer. So yeah,
And it's
probably the most exciting one going on.
Extremely fast for go-to-market as well, right? Considering that it wasn't part of the
Yeah.
pipeline at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ian, sorry, you're breaking up. I think your Wi-Fi is. Can't hear you.
Yeah, can't hear Ian.
It's like 2 years of work in 6 months, so it's been really intense for the team and everybody. So yeah,
It's great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but I want to thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave your emails in the chat. So for people who have questions for you, they can reach out to you via emails. But Linda will be joining us for about 20 minutes in the separate breakout room. So if you would like to, ask more questions about recruitment, Linda will be there. Ian, if you can join, you're welcome to join us in the breakout room as well. April, I know you had a question about the lab technician and scientist position. I would encourage you to ask Linda that in the breakout room so that your questions can be answered. If not, again, I want to thank you, Ian and Linda, for taking the time today to join us. And, we hope to see you guys back again since you're recruiting for so many positions.
Thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity
Thank you, Ellen.
to share.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. For those who are staying on, we have our last company for today, which is the FBI. Very exciting. I believe Jimmy from the FBI is here with us. So Jimmy, do you want to turn on your camera and join us?
Hey, good morning, guys. Actually, I wanted to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint.
Okay, sure. So this is the first time HTDC is hosting the FBI. So super exciting. Jimmy will be giving a 20-minute presentation, followed by a 10-minute Q&A. So if you have questions, again, like before, feel free to send them in the chat below. And Jimmy will also be joining us for a separate breakout after his presentation. So, welcome to just stay on if you can.
Great.
So, okay, Jimmy, if you are ready, I'll let you take over.
Great. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. I should say welcome to the FBI up on top. Really quick, my name is Jimmy Chen. I am a special agent with the FBI here in the Kapolei field office. I've been an FBI agent now for the last 15 years. Out of the 5 different disciplines that I'll be talking about today, I've worked 4 of them. So I've worked on counterterrorism, I've worked counterintelligence, I've worked cyber, and I've also worked white collar. So really quick today, I'm going to give you a rough overview about what opportunities are available within the FBI, kind of talk to you about some of the internship programs and the collegiate hire program that we have for recent grads, and I'll also go over the eligibility requirements when you do decide to apply at our website. All of us in the Bureau, regardless of what your position is, from auto mechanic to special agent to intel analyst to computer scientist, we all have our different reasons for joining the Bureau. For most of us, it's a duty to serve, to protect the American people and to uphold the Constitution. For those of you guys who have prior military experience, you're going to be very familiar with core values. Just like the other 2 organizations that you heard from today, we have our own set of core values as well. But again, each one of us comes to the FBI for different reasons. Just to throw out some numbers, we have over 35,000 employees in the Bureau right now. That's spread across 56 different field offices and 350 satellite offices all across the country. One surprising note, I think from people who watch TV and the movies, they always think of FBI like, hey, it's the agent position. Granted, I think that's one of the best positions in the Bureau, but in all honesty, we probably make up the minority in terms of the actual population of the Bureau. Roughly 2/3 of the FBI population is actually made up of non-agent personnel. So again, I'm talking about doctors, nurses, human resources, computer scientists, surveillance team, you name it. We have a position somewhere in the Bureau for you. If you move over to the right-hand column of the screen, you're going to see that we have over 60 international offices. So even though on TV you may think of the FBI as a domestic organization and the CIA as more of the international flavor kind of thing, it's not really true. We have over 60 positions all across the world. So if you want to scratch that itch of international travel, you also have that opportunity to work in one of the embassies or legat offices that we have in the world. The next two maps that I'm going to show you is kind of the different field offices that we have in the United States. And the only reason why I'm showing you these maps are that you know that you are not confined to just working here in Hawaii. So if you decide like, hey, I want to work in Kansas City one day, or I want to go home and my home is in Los Angeles, again, just note that we have a wide spread of offices throughout the country, so you can live pretty much everywhere that you want to go. And like I said, this second map here with all the little black dots is showing you where all the resident agencies are. So using Hawaii as the example, like I said, our main office is here in Kapolei on Oahu, but then we also have an office in Maui. We have 2 offices on the Big Island. We have a pretty decent sized office in Guam, and then we have a smaller office in Saipan. And that's all considered within the Honolulu AOR. So again, that's what you're kind of looking at when you look at all the different field offices and resident agencies on this map. So like I said earlier, we work primarily all the federal violations, and we carve those out into 5 different subcategories. Counterterrorism right now is the #1 priority for pretty much every single office in America. This includes both international and domestic terrorism. Here in Hawaii, we have 1 CT squad. I think right now we have 12 agents assigned to that squad. So 6 of us work IT, 6 of us work domestic. And then on top of that, we are supplemented by what we call our JTTF squad, which is our Joint Terrorism Task Force. That comprises of HPD, sheriffs, Army CID, NCIS, OSI, you name it. We probably have a representation from each of those entities that sit at our office and work with us hand in hand on terrorism matters. The next biggest priority we work is counterintelligence. That's the traditional spy versus spy that you see on TV. But not only that, we also deal with corporate espionage, which is huge here in Hawaii. Here in Hawaii, we're kind of in that unique position where, because of all the military bases, our geographic location to a lot of foreign countries. And then, like, you know, you heard this morning from Booz Allen and Oceanit, we're doing some pretty amazing stuff here in Hawaii. And we're always getting calls about, you know, counter espionage, corporate espionage, things like that. So again, that's a real hot and heavy topic for us here in the FBI office in Kapolei. The next one is probably dear to most of you guys here today. It's cyber. The one caveat that I will say about cyber is this: even though we have a cyber squad and it's dedicated to doing things like, you know, internet fraud, ransomware, denial of service attacks, computer intrusion type stuff, it really doesn't matter these days, right? If you have a bad guy who's doing terrorism or drugs or anything, all bad guys these days are going to use their phone and use their computer. So again, having a cyber skill or a computer background is going to help you regardless of what squad you end up going to. You don't have to go to a cybersecurity squad in order to scratch that cyber itch. Again, you can work counterterrorism and have that computer skills, and it's going to help you infinitely in terms of solving your cases and catching the bad guy. And the last 2 categories are the criminal. This is broken down to violent crime and white collar. Violent crime is your traditional kidnapping, hostages, bank robbery, drugs, human trafficking. And on the white collar side of the house is going to be more like public corruption, civil rights offenses, healthcare fraud, financial crime type of stuff. So in a broad stroke, those are the 5 different categories that we work, like I said, in the FBI. Now I'm going to go and talk about some of the specific job opportunities that are out there. Just keep in mind that there are hundreds of job opportunities in the FBI, and I can't talk about every single one of them. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of them. But just know that at the end of our session, if you go to our website, fbijobs.gov, that's going to be the one-stop shop that you go to apply for any position, any internship, any collegiate hire program for the FBI. Just go there, and that's where you're going to get started. So the first job that I want to highlight is CJIS, the Criminal Justice Information System. This is located in West Virginia. This is where all our data analytics takes place. I mean, if you've got a hankering to do something like that, work with databases, look at patterns, help us identify trends, the folks here are the ones that do it. It's called CJIS. Conversely, if you're a computer scientist or you want to work in a lab of some sort, we have one of the biggest labs in the FBI. It's located in Quantico, and we're also having a lab built in Huntsville. So again, this is going to be an up-and-coming area for us in terms of potential employment opportunities for you guys. Operational Technology Division, OTD. These are the guys that help us make our gadgets, surveillance gadgets, off-the-shelf hacks, trying to get into different devices, mostly comprised of our, computer science guys, our engineers, and our agents who are technically trained. CIRG, the Critical Incident Response Group, is kind of like what you see on TV. This is where we have our behavioral analysis unit, our hostage negotiations unit, our tactical teams, our flight teams, the folks that we fly to the Middle East or wherever something operational is happening and we need immediate help. That's what the CIRG group does. And again, I can't see all your faces right now because I'm sharing my screen, but I'm going to guess that most of you guys have questions about the special agent position. And I'm going to talk about the special agent position in the next 3 slides. But the things that you need to keep in mind about the special agent position, unlike some of the other positions that I'm going to talk about, the special agent position really does not require a specialized background. So like, for example, if you want to be a linguist or a computer scientist for the FBI, then obviously you need to have a degree that's germane to that topic, right? If you want to be a linguist, you have to be proficient in a foreign language. If you want to be a forensic accountant, you should have a CPA degree. But for the special agent track, that's one of the few jobs in the Bureau where you don't have to have a criminal justice degree to be an agent. You don't have to have a Homeland Security degree to be an agent. All you need is a 4-year college degree in any discipline. So if you have a computer science degree, an English degree, a communications degree, that's fantastic. I'll talk to you about in the next slide why that's so. But just know that out of all the positions that I'm going to talk about today, the special agent's position does have the most minimum requirements that you need to meet before you can even put in an application. The eligibility requirements are as follows. You have to be between the ages of 23 and 36. The reason for this is you have to be physically fit to be an FBI agent. You have to train on your firearms on a quarterly basis. Obviously, you're going to do tactical operations and things like that. So we want to be sure that when you become a special agent with us, that you can do the physical stuff and the intellectual stuff that's involved with becoming an agent. If you have military background or law enforcement background, you can get an age waiver. But typically for everybody else, like I said, 36 is that cutoff point. You have to have a 4-year college degree. And again, it doesn't matter what school you went to, Ivy League, state, whatever. The degree itself doesn't matter. It just has to be a bachelor's degree. The next one is probably the one that probably causes the most hiccup for most people. It's the 2 years of full-time professional work experience. You have to have 2 years of full-time professional work experience in order to apply for this position. If you have a master's degree or anything higher than a bachelor's degree, that restriction is lower to just a 1-year full-time work experience. And work experience for us is defined as any job that requires a college degree. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these positions that I'm going to be talking about, but let's say like you're a waiter or a server at a restaurant. Now, clearly that's a position that does not require a college degree. So even if you work at that job for 2 years, it's not going to count in terms of fulfillment of this minimum eligibility requirement. Having said that, whatever job you have, as long as it requires a college degree, it does not have to be tied into your actual major. So if you end up getting a computer science degree, but you're working as a consultant for Booz Allen and it doesn't have anything to do with your computer science degree, not a problem. Your 2 years there at that firm or company will count for the FBI purposes. The rest of the stuff is pretty clear cut. Have a driver's license, be a US citizen, be able to pass the physical fitness test, and comply with all of our drug and criminal history policies. So the question I always get is like, what are you guys looking for in your agent? Like, what are the qualities that are going to make me stand out in terms of my application? And one of the reasons why I told you earlier, it really doesn't matter what school you went to, what high school you went to, what your major was, and even to some extent, we don't even care about your GPA, is because what we value in the agent class are what we call these core competencies here. And as you can see, there are 8 of them. If you just look at this list, it's things like leadership, problem-solving ability, communication, collaboration. These are not skills that you get just because you went to an Ivy League college. These are not skills that you get just because you have a biology or a criminal justice degree. These are skills that you get through life experience. And that's why when we have that age 23 to 36, that's put there in place because we feel that by the time you reach that age, you should have the life experience that will give you the opportunities to highlight what we call these core competencies. Because if you're honest with yourself, like if you're 18, 19, 20, or 21, you're probably not going to be put in a position where you can display and talk about, hey, these are my leadership skills and this is how I use my leadership skills to overcome a specific problem. These are things that are going to probably happen later in life. So if you look at our successful agent applicants, by far the majority of them are probably within their early 30s. I'm not saying that if you're 23 and 24 and you apply, you're not going to get a fair shake. I'm just saying, like, by the time you're in your 30s, you've probably built up that resume, that work experience, where you can adequately talk about how these core competencies, how you meet them, and how you've achieved overcoming certain problems by having these competencies. The one thing that you do need to know about the FBI is that we are notorious when it comes to getting people through the pipeline. It takes a long time before, when you apply, to the time that you find out, hey, congratulations, you made it to Quantico. I typically tell people it can take anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half before you find out that, hey, congratulations, you've been accepted to the next class. Part of the reason why it takes so long is because there are so many different tests that you have to take and pass before you can continue on in the process. So for the agent side of the house, there are basically 3 tests that you have to pass before you can continue on. You have to pass the phase 1 test. You have to go through an interview. You have to pass the phase 2 test. You have to pass the physical fitness test. And then you've got that background investigation check, because everybody that works for the Bureau, regardless of your position, you have to have top secret clearance. Some of the other positions that I'm going to really fly by, because I know my time is getting short. We have the Intel analyst position as well. Intel analysts, you know, I kind of liken them to, like, if you think of the FBI as the human body, they're kind of like the brains, right? They're the ones that help us collate, analyze, report on data. The agents, we're kind of like the hands, the eyes, the feet. We go out, we collect the data, and we bring it back. And the analysts, they're the ones that help us, like, look at the big picture in terms of, like, hey, what is your bad guy doing on the global scale? Some of the other positions that we have, and again, STEM is a big one these days. We have positions for computer scientists, IT specialists, digital operations, networking. I know Ellen has I think a Google Drive where there's some flyers that I've provided that are more detailed in terms of what it takes to become any of those positions that you might be interested in. So definitely take a look at that Google Drive that I think Ellen will talk about later in the presentation. And then for some of the more traditional disciplines like business administration, human resource positions, program analysts, program management, these are all definitely positions that are available, maybe not here in Hawaii, but definitely somewhere within the Bureau. Forensic accounting is always a big one because bad guys, they need money to fund their nefarious deeds. So following the money is always a critical element for the FBI. And for those arts and communications type folks, you know, we have social media coordinator, public affairs coordinator. These are all avenues that you can pursue. And then some other career paths like legal, medical, police, surveillance, and like I said, the foreign language. Before I open this up to the general conversation, I do want to talk about the internship program. We have a 10-week paid summer internship that's eligible, or to be eligible, you have to be a college student going full-time to a university. We will renew your summer internship every single year until you get your final degree, whatever that might be. So if you decide after you get your bachelor's, you're gonna go get a PhD or a JD or an MBA, not a problem. The only requirements are you have to be a student in good standing, you have to maintain a 3.0 GPA, and like I said, pretty much after that, we will automatically renew your summer internship every single summer until you're done. On top of that, the good thing about this program is you do not have to do it in the same office every single summer. You basically will rank the top 5 offices that you'd like to go work at, and then based on the needs of the Bureau and where we have a spot for you, depending on what you want to do for us, that's how we're going to determine, hey, this summer you're going to work in Honolulu, next summer you're going to work in Las Vegas, the following summer you're going to be in Quantico. It's pretty much your choice. Conversely, if you're a recent grad and you're trying to get your foot into the door of like, hey, listen, I'm trying to get a job right now, but everybody's telling me I need to have prior experience before I'm hireable, we will give you the experience necessary to get your first job. We have this thing called the Collegiate Hiring Initiative, where basically recent grads can come work for us with no experience necessary. Like, we will give you the experience. Obviously, our hope is that after you get the experience, you're going to want to stay on with us long term. But again, there's no heartburn if you decide, hey, after a year or two, I want to go see how marketable I am in the civilian sector. Go for it. Now you've got something that you can put on your resume that I can guarantee is going to be a conversation starter for you when they see FBI on your resume. And like I said earlier, some of the disqualifiers for any employment opportunities in the FBI, you have to be a U.S. citizen, born or naturalized. Clearly, we're a law enforcement agency, so don't be convicted of any felonies or serious misdemeanors. Again, we are a U.S. entity, so don't default on a student loan backed by the U.S. government. Comply with our drug test, our criminal history check, be able to get top secret clearance, and these are basically the automatic disqualifiers if you are not able to successfully pass any of these stages that I just talked about. This last screen is just going to tell you about the FBIJobs.gov website. Again, this is the site that you want to go to for all of our employment opportunities. Don't go to LinkedIn. Don't go to usajobs.gov. They will sometimes post some of our jobs there, but they're not going to be posted on a timely fashion. So there's no guarantee if you see an entry on one of those sites that that job is still going to be vacant by the time you apply for it on FBIJobs.gov. And the last thing that I'll say before I turn it over to Q&A is definitely check out the FBI YouTube channel. We have 50 videos on there, and the vast majority of them are pretty good. The 3 that I will highlight on there that I think are worth watching, especially if you want to be an agent, is the physical fitness one. There's one on how to draft your resume. It's called Core Competencies. And then also just the, the special agent video where it talks about, hey, you do not have to have a traditional degree to come work for us as an agent. Like I said, computer science, English, journalism, you name it. The FBI is really, really good at figuring out how to use the skills that you bring to the table to our advantage. All right, having said that, I'll open it up to Q&A.
Great, thank you so much, Jimmy. It's fascinating, kind of understanding more about the FBI. We don't have any questions coming in right now, so I'm just gonna ask a couple of my own. As with the pandemic, for example, a lot of companies have remote opportunities. Does this also apply to the FBI, or do you guys have to be physically present in the office that you're working for?
Sure. So right now, each office in the state that they're in, they're following whatever the local guidelines are. But for here in Hawaii, in Tier 1, we have a staggered work hour. But obviously, crime is still happening. We still have our cases. So you still go into the office as needed, but a lot of it can be done through social media or like through the virtual platforms that we're on today.
Great. I think the other question I had was for non-agent positions. So, it seems really challenging to get through that whole process to be a special agent, but for other opportunities that are not agent positions, would the same kind of recruitment process apply? And of course, the time that's needed as well?
So at a minimum, like I said, all applicants for any position in the Bureau, you need to have top secret clearance. That's probably going to be the bulk of where the time is going to be taken up in terms of if you've never done an SF-86, which is the background check. We're going to want to know everything about you pretty much from, when you were 18 on. So that means like neighbors, jobs, references, travel, all that stuff needs to be put in there. So even though it may not take 6 months to a year and a half, like on the agent side of the house, it's still going to take a couple of months for us to do our background check. One of the questions that I always get though is like, hey, if I already have TS clearance through another job, is that going to carry over for us? It's not. We really do not want to rely on another entity's background check. We want to rely on our own check. So even if you already have TS through the military or through a government contractor, we are going to run our own. But again, to look for any other job besides the agent one, like I said, just go to FBIJobs.gov, go to the career job tab, and you can look up jobs 3 ways. You can look it up by location. So if you know for a fact you're only interested in jobs in Honolulu and you don't care about LA or Detroit, just type in Hawaii. Conversely, if you're like, hey, I'll work anywhere, I'm just more interested in the actual job itself. Like let's say if you want to be a computer scientist, then type in computer scientist and it'll pull up all the vacancies all around the Bureau that have that position available.
Okay, great. I think this is probably a more personal question. Why do you like working for the FBI?
For me, and my background is I have a biology degree. I went to law school. I was a Navy JAG. I was actually working as a salsa here in the District of Hawaii. So the FBI really didn't come into an opportunity for me until after I started working as a U.S. attorney. I really just got tired of sitting behind a desk all day. I really wanted to go out there, get my hands dirty, and be able to reflect 15, 20 years from now and like, hey, what have I done with my life? Hey, this is what I did. I helped prevent a terrorist attack in Hawaii. Or, I helped prevent corporate espionage over in the island of Kauai. There's nothing wrong with working for any other entity. I'm just saying in terms of the reward factor for me, at least, it's good to know that I've been able to affect so many lives by doing something that I feel is worthwhile. So that's why, for me, the FBI agent position in particular is something that's really special.
Great, thank you. So, I think the question is, how do you, stand out among the candidates applying for the positions, especially if it's, for example, like special agent position? I know you mentioned a couple of kind of values that you look out for, but how do they communicate that during the application process?
Sure. And I was listening to your speaker before on resume writing, and one of the questions was like, hey, do you guys still want resumes to be like a page or 2 pages long? I'm going to tell you right now that if you're working for the government or you're applying for any government position, definitely do not write a 1-page, 2-page resume, because especially for us in the FBI, that resume is what determines whether or not we think you're competitive enough to come in for that interview. So if you're banking on that resume to get you into that interview phase, and that's where you're going to show off all your skills, you're just not going to get there if your resume doesn't cut the mustard. So again, be sure that you hit every single core competency that I showed you on that slide, and give me solid examples in your resume. Like, hey, this is the scenario that I faced when I was working in this position. This is the actions that I took, and these are the results, or this is my takeaway. So again, if you go to that FBI YouTube channel that I was saying, there is a core competency video that you should watch, because it lays out point by point, like, this is what you need to have in your resume to be competitive, to move on to the interview phase. So most people's resumes can be anywhere from like 15 to 20 pages long for the FBI. And there's absolutely no problem with that. We will read every single word you put on there, because that's how we determine whether or not you're going to be competitive.
Okay, that's super interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. So for those who are interested in, applying for any positions in the FBI, make sure you work on their resume and match it to the core competencies that Jimmy shared. I don't have any other questions. I'm going to throw it out to the floor, or if there's something else, Jimmy, you want to kind of summarize for our audience members today. I'm just going to give a little bit of time to that before we move you out to the breakout session.
Sure. Ellen, the one thing that I will say to anybody who's interested in working in the FBI, regardless of in what capacity it might be, back in the day, most people, like, probably the last generation, people just stuck at their job and they didn't move on. They were like, hey, I'm a lifer. I'm going to be here for the next 20 years. Now if you spend more than 5 years in a job, you're probably considered an old timer. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with joining the Bureau for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Take advantage of what the government offers you. I mean, not only are you doing something worthwhile, protecting America, defending the Constitution, but we will pay for your education. We will pay for SANS certification, which anybody who's taken a SANS course knows that those are really expensive. There is nothing wrong with working for cybersecurity with the FBI and then parlaying that 3-5 years later to go work for, BlackBerry, CrowdStrike, Mandiant. We have tons of people that do that. I hate to see them leave, but I mean, I obviously understand, like, hey, there are some lucrative jobs out there once you leave the FBI, if that's the route you decide to take. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a short timer with the FBI. So just keep that in mind. Use the government to your advantage, and at the same time, do something worthwhile. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that brings up another question that I had, that, within the FBI, are there a lot of opportunities for moving within the FBI to different departments and so on? Yeah,
definitely. So one of the things a lot of people always come in is like, I can't do the agent job. I'm not physically fit. I have no desire to shoot a gun. I don't know if I can arrest somebody. So they come in a different position, right? They may come in as a forensic accountant, a linguist, IT person. But I can tell you right now that after working with the agents after maybe 2 or 3 years and seeing what we do, we always get folks who are like, hey, I could do that job. That, I actually want to get away from the desk. I actually want to be on the front lines doing this kind of stuff, investigating cases actively, that people convert over. So as long as you have the right attitude, you're a good worker, you have a good reputation, people are going to want you on their team. And that's how you move around the Bureau. That's how you move from different squads. That's how you, go to headquarters if that's what you want to do, or go overseas. Like I said, go work in Vienna or Austria or somewhere. That's how you move around the Bureau. So again, it is very common for people to jump around during the tenure that they're working for us.
Okay, great. So I want to thank you, Jimmy, for taking the time today to join us here in the main session. For those who have other questions for Jimmy, he will be in the separate breakout session. So feel free to join us there. And we would like, we have come to the end of our first mini virtual tech job fair. So if you have any feedback, feel free to always email us at info@htdc.org. And we will be having our second virtual job fair on November 17. And joining us will be companies such as American Savings Bank, Hawaiian Telecom, PEXA, and Servco Pacific. So, the link, we'll be sharing the link to that event in the chat. So, definitely RSVP if you're still job hunting. And, we will see you then on November 17th. So again, this session has been recorded and we will share with all the attendees who have registered for this event today. So keep a lookout in your inboxes. Once again, thank you so much, Jimmy and everyone for joining us this morning.